Today, we're going to talk about the invisible pyramid. This book was written by Eiseley and published in the year 1970. And Dr. Bing Chen, professor of electronics, technology, engineering here at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, is our guest and co-reviewer, co-host of this program, and a disciple of Loren Eiseley. And Dr. Chen says that of all the books that Eiseley has written, this is the one he reads the most. And I've seen his well-marked copy. He reads Eiseley like preachers ought to read the New Testament. John Wesley had a phrase. He said, this is the way John Wesley would call attention to the importance of something. He would say, read, mark, and inwardly digest. And that is what Bing Chen has done with this book. So Bing, let's hear from you. Okay.
Well, in The Invisible Pyramid, it's a book that I use in a number of my classes. Loren Eiseley probably spends more time in this book trying to study and to speculate on where our species is going as our technological society continues to grow here in the 20th century. And he speculates on the directions that we're going and offers the advice of a teacher to the people that inhabit this planet today. He uses a number of the themes from some of his earlier books, particularly The Immense Journey, where he talks first about evolution and the long rise of the species. And then he begins to look at what we have been able to affect in the last millennia. And then he specifically focuses on where we are today and some of the warnings that he gives to us as a, you might say, as a testament of advice that he is concerned in sharing his concerns. And I think perhaps the best way to summarize is right in his prologue, where he starts off, and I'll just read a certain portion of it. He begins by saying, "Man would not be man if his dreams did not exceed his grasp. If in this book I choose to act the ambivalent character of pessimist and optimist, it is because mankind itself plays a similar contradictory role upon the stage of life. If I term humanity a slime mold organism, it is because our present environment suggests it. If I remember the sunflower forest, it is because from its hidden reaches man arose. The green world is his sacred center. In moments of sanity, he must still seek refuge there. I know that we exist in the morning twilight of humanity and pray that we may survive its noon. But I dream, and because I dream, I severally condemn, fear, and salute the future. It is the salute of a gladiator ringed by the indifference of the watching stars. Man himself is the solitary arbiter of his own defeats and victories. I have mused on the dead of all epochs from flint to steel. They fought blindly and well against the future, or the cities and ourselves would not be here. Now all about us unseen, the final desperate engagement continues. If man goes down, I do not believe that he will ever again have the resources or the strength to defend the sunflower forest and simultaneously to follow the beckoning road across the star fields. It is now or never for both, and the price is very high. In the heart of a city, I have heard the wild geese crying on the pathways that lie over a vanished forest. Nature has not changed the force that drives them. Man, too, is a different expression of that natural force. He has fought his way from the sea's depths to Palomar Mountain. He has mastered the plague. Now, in some final Armageddon, he confronts himself.
His tone there is apocalyptic. That means the end of the world is in sight. He's elegiac. He's sighing over lost humanity. He says he's an optimist as well as a pessimist, but where's his optimism? We don't get much of that.
No.
It's as if we're too far down. We're too far. Civilization is too far down the road to turn around and make any significant repentance and return. So, where's the hope?
Well, I think that comes in later in the
Hope comes in
concluding
later.
sections, right?
That's nice to know.
He said we have to re-enter the sunflower forest, and he talks about the slow inward growth of the mind and the soul as being parts of these components.
It's interesting, he starts off in this first chapter by recounting the time when his father, this had to take place about 1910, because, well, it had to take place in 1910 because that's when Halley's Comet visited us. So his father held him up in his arms. Can you imagine now? Can you remember when you were 3 years old? Can you?
Barely.
Oh, you've got an adhesive memory. Most people can't remember much when they were 3 years old, but Loren Eiseley's 3 years old, and his father holds him up, and together they watch Halley's Comet visiting this planet Earth for the last time, for the first time in 75 years. Now his father says, look, son, take a long look, because the next time you see it, it will be 1985, and I won't be here, and you will be an old man. But remember who held you up. Remember who was with you when you saw it the last time. So now Eiseley died in 1977. He died at the age of 70. He didn't live until 1985 to see Halley's Comet return. I was in Alliance, Nebraska at the time, and taking a cue from Eiseley, I was visiting a family. There was a little boy there, and I said, look, come on out and let's look at Halley's Comet. And we got it. His father had a telescope, and we got it in the telescope. And so I said to him, now look, remember, it's 1985. This comet won't come back for 75 more years. But remember who was with you when you saw it. And Eiseley now in this book, it seems it's a metaphor. He's saying, this is civilization, Halley's Comet. It has gone too far out, and we don't really know whether it's going to come back. And we're waiting to hear the assurance. We want that blessed assurance that civilization will be saved and that we will return to our moorings.
Yeah.
But we're not as assured of that as we are that Halley's Comet will come back.
Yeah, there's several messages in here. One is the innocent promise of a son to his father that he will see the comet. He will wait for it to come. And there's also the kind of, I think Eiseley sensed that he would not be alive for when the comet was coming. That's the sense that I get reading this book. And
this is 1970, and he died in 1977. He was 63 years old when he wrote this book.
Yes. And he uses this metaphor to also talk about the fact that there have been so many cycles through the history of life on this planet. And he's now going, I think, also going back and talking about the processes which have formed this planet and the life force that exists on here. He takes a quote from John Neihardt: "Once in a cycle the comet doubles its lonesome track. Enriched with the tears of 1,000 years, Aeschylus wanders back." And then he very poetically describes the history of life on this planet, evolution, you might say. And this paragraph, I think, is a wonderful summary of that. He says, "Restricted and dark were many of these niches, and equally dark and malignant were some of the survivors. The oblique corner with no outlet had narrowed upon them all." And he's talking about the stage of life on this planet. Biological evolution could be defined as one long series of specializations: hooves that prevented hands, wings that, while opening the wide reaches of the air, prevented the manipulation of tools. The list was endless. Each creature was a tiny fraction of the life force. The greater portion had died with the environments that created them. Others had continued to evolve, but always their transformations seemed to present a more skilled adaptation to an increasingly narrow corridor of existence. Success too frequently meant specialization, and specialization was ironically the beginning of the road to extinction. This was the essential theme that time had dramatized upon the giant stage.
Well, success meant the trap. Now, you have opted in this direction, so now you're trapped with being who you are. And he uses this phrase, evolutionary effort. Isn't that an interesting phrase? It isn't as if it happens as something over which we have no control, but it's as if he's suggesting we decided to become who we are, and we are now living with the consequences of that choice. There's a story that I like to tell to the boys and girls at story time in church, and it's entitled Gabriel and the Creatures. And in this story, Gabriel, the angel Gabriel, distributes wishes, and each little creature, that's what we were before we became what we are, has a handful of wishes. Now you can spend your wishes any way you want, says Gabriel, but once you spent them, they're spent. And don't come back to me and say, I want my wishes back because I made a mistake. And so each little creature spends his wishes. One of them says, I want to be the biggest, the meanest, the toughest, the hardest-nosed creature in all the world. And so Gabriel says, all right, you sure? Okay, give me your wishes. And he makes him into the sperm whale. And then he swims around on the surface of the sea. And he says, look at me, boys, I'm really tough. I've got a nose like a boxcar, and I can slap my tail on the sea and shampoo the angels. And they're all impressed. But Gabriel says, no, just wait a minute. Just give him time, give him time. He says, two can play at that game of being a muscular gorger. And so they all say, another little creature spends his wishes on teeth because he's got to defend himself. And he gets to be a saber-toothed tiger, but his teeth are so long he can't chew his food. He starves to death. It's true. It's true to natural history. The saber-toothed tiger has gone into extinction. And here's another little creature who spends his wishes on claws because he's got to defend himself. And another on hoofs because he's got to protect himself against the rocks. And another on a long tail so he can swing from tree to tree. But here's one who keeps saving his wishes, saving his wishes, saving his wishes. Finally, he checks in with Gabriel and says, I want to have an open, tentative, exploratory hand so I can touch. And I want to stand on 2 feet instead of 4 feet like these other guys. And I want to have something in me that's more than just a brain. I want to have a mind or a soul. And Gabriel says, good for you, son. I knew you'd do it. I was betting on you all the time. And see, now Eiseley is saying that. He's talking about evolutionary effort. He's saying there is a decision that you can make that will affect your intellectual, spiritual, biological offspring, and you today. To me, this is the hopeful thing in Eiseley. He's saying we can consciously decide what we are going to be, and we can release the life force behind those decisions, and that we're not frozen the way we are in time and space.
Right.
So, in a sense, we're trapped. We can't go back, but in a sense, the future's still free.
And he says, and then strangely, then he says that, or interestingly, he says, well, this has been the great stage of life that has been played over and over and over again for several billion years. He says, in 3 billion years of life upon the planet, this play had never been acted upon the great stage before. We come at a unique moment in geological history. We ourselves are equally unique. We have brought with us out of the forest darkness a new unprophesiable world, a latent lurking universe within our heads. Human beings in which the power of communication had arisen were leaving the realm of phylogeny for the realm of history, which was to contain henceforth our final destiny.